Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our VantagePoint YouTube live channel today. Really excited to dive into some great topics, especially scanning today. So we're going to be covering looking for new opportunities using volume primarily today in our session here. So really looking forward to diving a little deeper into that. Always great to better understand additional topics and concepts and things that you can learn to really integrate into your own personal trade strategies. So looking forward to that. So we're going to go ahead and get going here. And do me a big favor before we get started here and really dive into VantagePoint and our live analysis, including those stock screeners and scans. Tell me, are you a VantagePoint user already, or is this the first time that you're seeing VantagePoint? That will just help me to kind of gauge who we have in the session for today and really accommodate all of our learners, whether you're brand new to VantagePoint and just seeing it for the first time, or whether you've been using it for many decades now. So VantagePoint's been around for quite some time, always being on the forefront of innovation and technology here with the artificial intelligence and using that incredible power to forecast for the stock markets coming ahead of time. So that way you can better prepare and plan your trade day. So looking forward to diving into that today, but do me a favor and just go ahead and put in the chat whether this is your first time seeing VantagePoint. Again, that will just help me throughout the education process here today. And of course, remember, anytime we dive into this, it's always for educational purposes. You take the information that makes sense to you and your trade strategy and apply as you will. So I'm not a licensed advisor, but I can certainly help you better understand the technical analysis, including volume today. So we're going to dive into that here right now, actually. So let's go ahead and transition on over into our VantagePoint software. And give me just 1 second, guys. Got to love a little bit of technical difficulty here, but we're going to get that all set up. All right, guys, sorry about that. Gotta love a little bit of technical difficulties, always so much fun. But I think everyone should hear me loud and clear. Just give me a quick okay. Want to make sure that we're all up and going, ready to dive on in to VantagePoint. I appreciate your patience here as we get some of those things sorted out. Gotta love going live, right? So I think everyone should be able to hear and see my screen, but do me a huge favor and just let me know if you can by just clicking in that chat window, making sure that we are all good. Okay, perfect. Well, welcome and welcome back, right? Perfect. Thank you so much, Randall. I appreciate that. Well, welcome to VantagePoint. Let's see, we've got quite a few familiar names in here as well. So looking forward to helping you guys better understand how to use VantagePoint. And for those of you who are just seeing things for the first time, well, welcome. And here's VantagePoint. Welcome to the most powerful technology you will see in the stock market. So we're going to start out with Amazon today because I do want to make sure that everybody understands just a little bit better how to forecast for these, in using the predictive analysis. All right. So VantagePoint makes it super simple, super easy. All right. But we are going to go through primarily 4 points of confirmation, and then we'll of course include our volume analysis. But just to get everybody on the same page, I want to make sure that you all know that the main piece here within the VantagePoint software is going to be your 4 points of confirmation. And so your 4 points of confirmation are going to be these 4 things. Write them down if you need to. Okay. So you can see we have our crossover here. See where that blue line crosses over the black line? Yep, just that simple. When it turns green, that's a bullish signal or an up signal for those of you who aren't quite sure what bullish is. So bullishness means up or to the up direction. And of course, that would be indicated by a green signal here on our trend line. Now, the next would be our confirmation of the neural index. Now, that's a very fancy term for a prediction of price over the next 2 days. Now, we're using neural networks and artificial intelligence and machine learning to forecast this price action. So this is true artificial intelligence AI at work here with our trend as well as our neural index too. So that's the second point of confirmation. Our third piece of confirmation then comes down here from our predictive differences. The predictive differences are going to measure the strength of the current trend. And so we see that we do have strength coming into that trend. Now, not only are we looking at the current trend, but we're also looking out at that future trend as well, because these are also predictive indicators using that artificial intelligence. So incredibly powerful points of confirmation here. Now, looking back, we can't quite see our 4th point of confirmation just yet, but if you take your eyes over to the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that we have the predictive trade range. So that predictive trade range, that is going to forecast the expected range for the day. All right, yes, the price range for those of you who are scratching your head thinking, how do you know what the price is going to do the next day? Well, that's what artificial intelligence is for. And these indicators themselves are incredibly powerful because we're not only looking at Amazon, and since we do have a lot of newer, traders to the room today, I do want to just open this up for everybody. If you notice, we can even go to market details, and I'm going to pull up the details on Amazon. So we can actually look behind the scenes to see what markets are impacting, sort of pushing, pulling, and driving this stock. And in this case, this stock would be Amazon. So we won't spend too much time here because you can see there's many markets that go into the forecast of Amazon because there are many markets that are impacting Amazon. There is this inner market analysis that happens with any price movement in a stock. There are other markets that are pushing, pulling, and driving. Here you can see there are US stocks, those are highlighted in blue. There are ETFs, those exchange traded funds that are actually impacting the way Amazon moves, and then Forex as well. You could also switch this to different sectors so you could see the different categories that are impacting and pushing, pulling, and driving Amazon itself. So this is just kind of a look behind the scenes on what the artificial intelligence is doing for you to come up with these forecasts. Incredibly powerful tool using that artificial intelligence to give us our forecast. So as traders, you can read this very simply. You're looking for a quick 1, 2, 3, 4 points of confirmation to give you great confidence. Now, even greater confidence comes when you even layer on that volume as well. But I think this gives us a really good kind of assessment just to see where this asset is at and what your signals for timing your entries and exits would be using those 4 points of confirmation. Now, of course, confirmation would mean you would want them to confirm each other. You would want good confluence, or really for them to all be in agreement before signaling whether or not you should enter or potentially exit a trade. So in this case, we would be looking at a bullish trend expectation. Now, after deciding to potentially enter a trend, then you would look to the predictive crossover to see that we are continually trending in the up direction. That trend remains green throughout that movement, and so that would signal a continuous bullish trend. Here is where you can manage your position accordingly with great confidence. If you are a swing trader, this is a sort of ideal to see, okay, how long do you stay? That's probably one of the questions I get the most, right? Not only when do you enter, but when do you exit? And as long as this trend remains green, you've got great confidence to really, stay in that position if you choose to, because the predictive analysis is looking 1, 2, and 3 days ahead for you. So you can anticipate moves, even further ahead, and really plan and prepare for an exit if necessary, or stay if that is what the artificial intelligence is saying as well. So taking the emotion out of that. But here we can see Amazon, giving us a really good overview on how to use the software. And Amazon, well, let's face it, has also had some high volume today as well. So we can also add volume to our chart. Let's do that together. So I'm just going to come over to our indicator panel over here, and we have many different types of technical analysis that you can use here within the software. Some are optional. Volume is part of our VantagePoint software. So even if you are a VantagePoint user, hopefully this will open your eyes to using some volume assessment during this time as well. So we can see when we do have our confirmed crossover back here on 626, let's look at our volume trend to see what is happening here when it comes to volume. Volume can be a trend confirmation tool as well, meaning it can give you additional confidence in the current trend as it works its way through. And so when we get this sort of reversal signal from a bearish trend to a bullish trend here, we can use volume as additional confirmation of that potential reversal. And then having increased confidence in that trend moving forward, we can see the breakout start to happen once we see higher volume coming into this trend. And we can see that with 2 volume bars in green, that would be bullish volume, guys. Again, green meaning bullishness. Then we can see that that trend really then takes off from there on a really nice, potentially bullish move. We can see that actually taking place here. Now, do we have bullish volume currently? We do, right? We see that we do have bullish volume confirming our continued bullish trend at this time. And we're going to get into some other uses for volume as well. But just for starters, we want to make sure that we get that on the chart for our analysis today. So let's make this really simple for all of us, and let's just keep volume on the chart for our markets moving forward. I'm just going to right click and save this as a default, so that way any charts that we pull up will now have our volume analysis on there as well, so we can see what that volume is and how it's working with those predictive technical indicators as well. So as we can see here, let's, oops, I'm sorry. Let me just go down to the chat here. I had some questions coming on in. Yes, WB, that's absolutely right. Sometimes the volume pumps up as earnings come in. And that's a really important point here as well, because we do have earnings coming up on July 31st, right? So with upcoming earnings, oftentimes we'll see an increase in volatility. We'll see an increase in volume as well. In fact, if you checked out our session last week, we talked a lot about earnings and how that sort of natural volatility comes into play during that time frame. And part of that analysis is volume as well. So great observation there. Thank you for that note. Perfect. So let's go ahead and jump on in to another asset, another kind of big mover that had volume really pushing in today and expected to was Oracle, right? So if we take a look, Oracle has been on this tremendous run recently. Is there anyone who has looked at some of these assets themselves? Maybe you're trading them. Are you doing any sort of volume analysis to identify trend reversals or confirm the current trends as well? So let me know in the chats. I'd love to know who is already using volume as a part of their analysis and who maybe is just being introduced to volume analysis here today. Again, that will just help us to really cover the basics or get a little bit more advanced if we need to as well. So I'm just going to add volume to our chart here. Let's get volume on. I had already had that pulled up, so it didn't quite convert over to our previous chart view, but that's okay. It's a simple click of the button to get that new indicator added on to the chart. So as we can see here, when it comes to Oracle, we had our major trend back here, starting with those 4 points of confirmation. Confirmation here with the trend, confirmation here with our predictive differences and the neural index as well. And so with that continuous trend, the question then becomes, do we have enough strength to continue pushing forward, especially as we're at sort of, highs in a market? And anytime we get to extreme highs in a market, that always kind of incite some level of fear that things are going to downturn. Well, volume can be a precursor to that. So if we're not seeing bearish volume, then we are confirming with bullish volume as well. And so we can see that we don't really have any extreme bearish volume happening here. In fact, we have an increase in bullish volume. And so with that, we can see, again, very simply looking down, looking for that green for bullishness, red for bearishness for those options traders or those of you that like to short the market, right? There's nothing wrong with taking advantage of the downside either. There's two sides to the market, right? 3, if you want to consider consolidation for some potential spreads. So if we take into account that volume and our neural index as well, we can see that our trend is still bullish, helping us to navigate through maybe some of the recent volatility, this sort of pullback that we saw. But then with a pullback and increasing bullish volume, then we can have, again, even a more confidence that this market is expected to continue. I'm going to zoom on in just a little closer so we can get a closer look at that predictive trade candle as well. So that predictive trade candle right here is the predictive trading range for the day. And so we can see that on both ends, this is actually giving us a bullish reading. Now, why do I say a bullish reading? Well, because it's green, right? Anytime that we see that bullish or that green shading on the top, that means we're expecting a higher high, meaning the market's going up. And anytime that we're seeing a green lower reading on that candle, that would mean we are expecting a higher low, again, meaning price action would be expected to be bullish. Now, again, that price can fluctuate throughout that candle. It's just simply looking at the high and the low. But even more value to that, it's looking at the predicted high and low. All right, so that is the predictive trade candle, using that as our additional point of confirmation. So the reason I point out these points of confirmation and these trend identifying indicators is because that's what we're going to be using in our IntelliScan today. We're going to be using these 4 points of confirmation to identify trends, but we're also going to be looking for volume as well, increased volume. So welcome for everyone who is just kind of joining in. Sean, thank you for everyone. Just go ahead and keep those questions coming. If you do have individual questions, type those in the chat. That will just help us to kind of dive a little deeper into the indicators today. That's what these live sessions are for. We're doing live analysis right here, and we're actually going to create our scan as well. So let's go into a new IntelliScan. And just for everyone who's just now seeing VantagePoint, the IntelliScan is what we call our stock screener. Now, of course, it's an intelligent scanning capability, and so that's why it's called IntelliScan. So we're just going to create a new IntelliScan. And there are some default indicators that will show up in your scan when you are initially opening that scan. So we can see here that our IntelliScan, or our stock screener, consists of these predictive indicators that we just went over on the chart. So the same indicators we were looking at down on our chart down here are the exact same indicators we're looking at up here in the IntelliScan. So we can actually pinpoint and identify very specific types of opportunities that would meet an individual's trade setup. That's the beauty of having this customizable scanning feature here in VantagePoint, is that you can identify trends that would work best for your particular trade strategy. So I'm just going to pin this scan to our main page just so we can set this up together. So if we're looking for bullish opportunities using increased volume, we would just need to simply set our crossovers. Now keep in mind, I said our crossovers is the blue line crossing over the black line. So we're looking for that blue line to be above the black line and for the trend to be green. That way we can set up those crossovers, all right, to the up direction. All right, now you'll notice that there are a few time frames here on our crossovers. We've got the short-term crossover. That's a one-day trend forecast. So if you're looking out just one day, we're expecting that trend to move up on a one-day basis. Now, great for day trading, great for shorter term swings as well. Now, for those maybe longer term swing traders who are looking for, holding a couple of days, maybe even a week or so, you may like to use that medium term crossover. That's a 2-day trend forecast. So looking out 2 days to give you a little bit more notification or strength within a trend. This is going to help give that additional confirmation that you need. Then looking at our long-term crossover, this is a 3-day trend forecast that actually looks out 3 days to anticipate that trend direction 3 days ahead. Again, more conservative than even the medium-term crossover. So we're really moving in order of sensitivity to more conservativeness to from the short to the medium to the long. And then, of course, the triple cross is going to be the most conservative. It uses 3 different predictive moving averages. So you can see these in the IntelliScan. Let's see how that translates quickly to the chart here, because I do want everybody to understand how to read the chart so we can set up a scan that would make the most sense for the types of opportunities we're looking for today. And with that being said, we can see here, I'm actually on the medium term crossover. So sort of that happy middle ground, if you will, that happy medium, because we can see here the medium term predictive and the medium term actual. So there's your medium indicated right there on the chart. Now, very quick and simple, easy to switch this up as well. You can see we can take our indicators, our views rather. We can select from our view drop down and just simply select the short-term crossover. Again, that's the same short-term crossover we're seeing up here in the IntelliScan. It's just now a visual representation on the chart. And you can see that this short-term crossover is much more sensitive than the medium term. And that's because it's only looking 1 day out, looking for those quick short-term movements in the markets. Again, a customizable way to really adjust your charts, adjust your scan for the individual trade strategy that you are looking to execute. All right, so let's take a look then at the medium term. I'll just walk you through all of them very quickly. So we have the medium term here, and then of course we can switch over to that long term. You can see this gives us a little bit more strength here. I'm actually going to back this out because if you can see the long-term crossover from our initial 3-month view, we see that this was just some slight consolidation happening, but overall the trend was still expected to be bullish. So if you're a longer term or like to kind of a long-term swing or position trade, then the long-term crossover may be kind of your go-to crossover for timing as well. So as long as this blue line remains over the black and the trend remains green, beautiful. You've got a nice predictive indicator that's going to give you the information you need to either take action or steady as you go. Okay, so as we then cross over to our triple cross, you can see we have those 3 different lines. This is a short, a medium, and a long-term predictive exponential moving average for those of you who like to understand the ins and the outs of the indicators. This is actually 3 different exponential moving averages on the screen at the same time, and the color shading is evaluating the relationship between those crossovers. So I'm just going to back this out again for a 6-month view so you can see how that triple cross works. If it's red, guess what? It's bearish, all right? We try to keep it super simple. I love a good color coding system. For those of you who have attended my trainings, you know, color coding is just simple for everyone, right? So with red, we can see that we do have a bearish trend here. Now, once that indicator switches over to our green shading, this is going to give us a confirmed bullish trend. This triple cross, really valuable in understanding the integrity of our current trend. Do we have a strong bearish trend? Do we have a strong bullish trend? And right now we can actually see we do have current day a fairly strong bullish trend at the moment. And so the integrity of this trend is something that's very important to identify before entering into a trade, or even using it to manage your trade as well. So those are our crossovers. Let's jump back to our scan now that you understand what each of these crossovers are in fact looking for. Now, here's the beautiful thing. VantagePoint's going to make it super simple. You can select up or you can select down for these indicators. So let's look and focus at our short and our medium term crossover. The size of the candle. Sure, Mark. So the size of the candle, are you referencing the price candle or are you referencing the volume candle? Just want to make sure. Let me know in the chat, and as soon as I get that, I will go ahead and answer. So the size of the candle here on the actual chart is the trade range for the day. So if we need to do a quick analysis of that, let me just pull this up. That's a great question. This is why I love just looking at the chat. I do try to stay keep a pretty close eye on that chat so we can go through as many questions as you guys need. But a trade candle here, just kind of going sort of through the anatomy of a trade candle, if you will, and I'll just zoom in even closer so we can get a closer peek here. You can see at the bottom, we have this wick that comes down. You can see it maybe a little bit better on the green here, but we have a wick that comes down from the bottom. This is going to represent the low for the day. All right, the top of the wick that's up here, there's a very small one up at the top here. You can see it maybe a little bit better on this candle, but the wick represents the high and the low that were actually achieved that day. The body is going to represent the open and the close. If it's a green candle, the open is going to be at the bottom with the close being higher, meaning that we closed higher than where we opened. Overall, the market was up for the day from open to close. All right, if it's red, that would be the exact opposite, where we would see the open up at the top and the close down at the bottom, meaning overall we went down for the day. But that's actually a question that we do get sometimes. So thank you for asking. It's important for everybody to understand, because the close price, the open price, the high, the low, that's also very important in technical analysis, because there are a lot of indicators that are using that information to actually aid you in your trends as well. All right, so thank you so much for just asking those questions. You never know when your question is going to be the one that helps someone else too. So as traders, you guys are a community of people that can help each other. So as we see, we have our neural index here. That was one of our 4 points of confirmation. Keep in mind, that's that red and green bar that runs across the bottom of the screen. And then let's look at our predictive differences. We would want nice bullish strength coming in. So I'm just typing in U for up. That's just a quick little shortcut that we can use in the scan. You could also just select the up from the drop down if that works easier for you. And then our predictive trade range. That's that predictive trade candle that we discussed a little earlier today, where we have that predictive trade range coming from the top and the bottom. We would want both of those to be green. That would signal the up direction here. And so we'll just select up for that predictive trade candle. So now we have essentially a bullish scan based on our short and medium term crossovers and our 4 points of confirmation. Now, we said we were going to add volume into this. Well, we certainly can add volume into the scan. So here I'm going to add trade volume. This is going to equate to how many shares are traded per day. All right. Now, volume is also a really great way to identify highly liquid assets. And when it comes to entering and exiting a trade, especially in a swing type strategy, then liquidity becomes very important. All right, who understands and uses liquidity in their trading? Kind of put that in the chat for me so I know who is already using volume to identify liquidity and who maybe needs some additional help with this. All right, so I see some short responses coming in. So yes, all right. So when it comes to volume, all right, you want something that you can get into and out of very easily. It also helps to decrease, the bid-ask spread. And so volume becomes a key component on that liquidity. And so we can use volume to identify highly liquid assets. All right, they tend to be just generally better quality assets as well. Something that has a lot of activity in it. And so what we can do is actually look for a high trade volume. So we'll use our scan to do so. And I'm just going to simply put this, a good baseline. And again, everybody's trade strategy is a little bit different, but a good baseline to ensure enough liquidity would be like 1 million or more. You could, decrease that or increase that. Some traders like 3 million, 5 million, some are okay with 500,000. But this is going to be number of shares traded per day. So we'll just type this in at 1 million. Don't forget to count your zeros, right? But you can see here, we now have a volume of 1 million or more using the IntelliScan. All right, so right now we're just setting up our IntelliScan. We're gonna get to the fun part here in just 1 second. In fact, let's do that now. Let's not keep you waiting on the edge of your seats here. So we can actually just take our US stock sector. So let me just give you a little bit of a breakdown. I'm gonna circle back here for a second because I want you guys to understand that we do have several different areas of the market that we forecast for, not just stocks. So if you're looking at Forex, exchange traded funds, ETFs, sorry, that was a mouthful for some reason, but ETFs, US stocks, we also have cryptocurrencies. There are many different assets that you can use VantagePoint for. So for today, we're going to go ahead and drag and drop those US stocks into our IntelliScan. You can see I literally just drag and drop those into the IntelliScan, and that's going to filter and sort through all of the US stocks that we actually forecast for, looking for areas of opportunity where our criteria that we've set in the scans, our filters are met. And so if you can see here, we now have an IntelliScan that out of 1,749 assets actually filtered out many of them and displayed 270. So this makes it a much more manageable number, but you're probably thinking like, wow, 270 assets, that's a lot of charts to review. It absolutely could be. So this is where we can also use volume to sort of find higher quality assets as well, faster moving assets, things where volume is actually helping to confirm that bullish trend. And so not only are we looking at trade volume, but we can also look for bullish trade volume. And so we can actually come on in, and I'm just going to type in volume here because again, we do have many different indicators that you can additionally add to VantagePoint, but we can use that volume trend. And so if you want assets, or if you're looking for assets that also have a confirming bullish volume trend, then we'll just add that into the IntelliScan. Why do all of that work if the software can do it for you? Make your life simple, make it easier. Set that direction to up as well. So now we've actually filtered out about 100 different assets. Now we're down to 177 using that volume trend as well. Now we could additionally add another volume indicator here, which is the volume percent average. All right, so this is essentially taking the volume as a percentage and averaging it out. So what that means to you is this asset trading at a higher volume than usual? All right, is the volume above the average? And so what we're going to do is take volume percent average and add that into the IntelliScan. And so what we've done is create a bullish scan looking for those points of confirmation that are already confirmed bullish, and now adding this volume analysis on top of it. All right, so if we take a look, we can now see that we have highly liquid assets. We have a trend that's confirming our 4 points of confirmation from a volume standpoint. And then we also have our volume percent average, which means volume is higher than normal and it's confirming bullish. So we can see now how powerful this scanning tool is looking for that volume. So if we want volume to be greater than its typical or average volume, we would just simply set that at greater than 0. So now we have 138, right? Again, still quite a few here. If you're looking for additional confirmation, you could also look for that long-term crossover and your triple crossover up as well. All right. So here we can see many different assets that are currently trending bullish. And some of these assets you probably know very well, right? And are wondering, how do you identify those markets with higher volume? So we could also sort based off of that volume percent average as well. So we can see something like Honda Motor, right? Has incredibly high volume right now. We've got bullish signals across the board, meaning it's in a bullish trend, and volume is confirming the expectation to continue. So if we look, we have 3.76 million in daily trade volume. Then we're looking at the volume trend, which has been up for 3 days. Scan gives you so much information, guys. It's so powerful. It's one of my favorite things to teach because this can just save you so much time. And then, of course, we can see that average volume incredibly high. So let's go ahead and take a look at Honda here. And we can see that, wow, this trend has been up for quite some time. VantagePoint actually signaled this prior to, and we can even switch over to that triple cross so you can see, again, looking at that bit more of a conservative view. Even if you're using this, you can see where we actually had our 4 points of confirmation back here, or even here if you're waiting for that additional confirmation as well. Because here's the thing about the triple cross. We can also use this triple cross as, let me just back this up a little bit so you guys can see a little further. Well, maybe it's easier to see jumping in. There we go. So we can see where we have our bullish triple cross here, our bullish neural index, and our bullish volume, as well as our predictive differences, all trending up at the same time. We'll just make this a little bigger so you guys can see that those 4 points of confirmation, and then including volume here as well. So powerful. And so now looking at that volume trend here, we can see we've had volume high for at least 3 days. Again, with that confirmation as well, Honda up and expected to continue in that direction as well. So, I know there's a lot of fundamentals at play here too. I believe there were some, things happening with trade deals and things of that nature. But this is a prime example of where fundamental analysis and technical analysis, marrying the two together, can really give you a huge advantage, especially if you're looking at that predictive technical analysis, because, well, let's face it, this actually came up in the scan yesterday. These results are something that VantagePoint provided its users last night at 6:30 p.m. All right. So take that into account, that we're not looking at these from what the market's done today. We're looking at them from a standpoint of how can we use this information to trade those assets today. All right. So you would have had this last night at 6:30 p.m. For those users who are in VantagePoint, because I know we do have some in here today. In fact, quite a few are new. So welcome to VantagePoint for the first time. But for those of you who are already using VantagePoint, are you using volume analysis? Are you using volume analysis in your IntelliScan? I'd love to know. Just keep me posted on that. I type it in the chat here for me, please. My goodness, absolutely. All right. So someone had asked for the EMAI indicator, which is the electronic market accumulation index. And that is in fact another indicator that really does identify volume coming in from the bigger institutions. So that really would be classified almost as a volume indicator. Really helps you to better understand market conditions. So let's take a look at that EMAI. Oh, helps if you spell things correctly. A little bit of a fat finger moment there for a second. But let's back this out to a 6-month chart here, so we can see where we do have EMAI coming above that price action. When we see EMAI moving above price action like this, especially when we have divergence, and let me just pinpoint and identify that for those of you who are not familiar with the EMAI. EMAI is the Electronic Market Accumulation Index. That's a mouthful, so forevermore known as EMAI in this session, okay? But what it does is it tracks that institutional movement or institutional buying volume. And so what we're seeing is an accumulation of that asset coming up. And we saw that happening several days ago with a divergence from price. So this right here is really a sort of brilliant potential setup for an increasing bullish trend where institutions are trying to buy in at the lower price. And when that happens, we'll often see that larger move to the upside because the big money is supporting that move. We're essentially riding that wave, but we're looking at it ahead of time. So we're seeing that wave coming, so we're able to take advantage and really hop on at the right time and ride it through its, to its fullest potential. So here we can see, let me just clear off my drawings here for a second. Okay, always using volume, but never the trend or the percentage. All right, well, add that into your scan now and see how that can help you identify sort of higher quality opportunities as well. I love hearing that feedback. That's why we do these sessions, is to just provide that additional information. So whether you're using VantagePoint or whether you're, using some other, platform, make sure that volume is a part of your trend analysis. It's a very, very important part. And so, no matter what platform you're using, that's why we provide this education. So volume analysis for liquidity, volume analysis for trend confirmation, as well as institutional movement as well. And oftentimes when we see that very high volume, it is institutions moving in. So that's where that percent average can help you as well. Now, if you wanted to even add electronic market accumulation to your scan as well, or your IntelliScan, remember the screener that we have in VantagePoint is called IntelliScan. And this IntelliScan now has our electronic market accumulation index incorporated into the IntelliScan. Again, same indicator we're using on the chart, just making it even more powerful because now we can identify opportunities with that increased electronic market accumulation index here. And now we're down at 79. We could even look for the number of days, meaning volume is increasing for at least, a number of days. And maybe that would be greater than 3 or greater than 5. Just depends upon what your trade strategy is or how much confirmation you need. If we hit greater than 5, then of course we do see that this has really narrowed things down to about 5 very high quality opportunities here at this point. Now, if we switch that down to 3, you can see it doesn't change the types of opportunities we're looking for. It just changed sort of the quality of the opportunities that are going to be presented in the scan. So at greater than 3, we now have 8 opportunities. Makes things certainly much more manageable than that 270 that we initially started with, narrowing those things down from just your initial 4 points of confirmation to volume analysis to, liquidity, and then of course using that EMAI for institutional movement as well. Let's open up a few of these and just take a look. And I tell you what, I am actually going to ask for some additional ticker symbols right now. Are there any ticker symbols that you guys want to look at and do some live analysis? I always like to leave that till the end to make sure that we have plenty of time to go over so we can add in this new volume analysis on top of our predictive technical analysis as well. So go ahead and start typing those in. I am going to open up some of these markets as well. So we can, you can open up all of these at one time if you want to. You could in fact just kind of scroll down and highlight them all. This is just a little shortcut, right? And then just right click and open chart. It's really that simple. Now our scan has sort of done its job Thank you, IntelliScan, right? And then we will just go ahead and minimize that IntelliScan so we can see the charts on a much bigger basis here. So I'm going to just back this out to sort of a 3-month view so we can see what's happening here. We can see, again, very high volume happening here with that anticipation moving forward. Honda was, again, one that we had already opened, had already showed up in our IntelliScan, and we could see where that was headed. Of course, we can look at Xerox as well. So looking at Xerox, we do have earnings that just happened as well. Let's see, is this supposed to be, they may have already released, in fact, they would have, whether it was before the open or after the open. So we would, of course, take a look at that asset to see what happened with Xerox. I'm not sure where it landed for today, but with that high volume, certainly we would potentially expect to see some rapid movement here. And I believe we ended, let's see, around 593. So it actually did come down today. Not too far, right? We're actually still right above yesterday's trend. So with earnings, that's always going to be a signal that you do need to be a little bit cautious there. But we can see that the volume was actually confirming this trend coming in. And someone had mentioned it earlier in the chat. So thank you for that, because when we have upcoming earnings, there's oftentimes this shift in volume that comes into the trend. And so let's add that electronic market accumulation index here so we can see what was happening and back this out. EMAI, or the electronic market accumulation index, you do want to look back at like a 6-month view. That'll kind of scale it properly for you. And we can see that EMAI is still above price action. That movement above price action would help you to see whether or not institutions were still buying in, of course, with that directional component as well. Now, there's a secondary piece to EMAI, and this is the average line. And so this is basically the average buying and selling of the institutions. And so what we're looking for here is for this EMAI line, the blue line, to be above that average. And when we see institutions accumulating an asset or buying in more than normal. Now, okay, I did not mean for that for that to be so big, but showcases the importance here, right? So you can see when an asset shows accumulation above average along with that increasing bullish volume. Guys, look, we've had bullish volume for how many days now? Count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. So for 6 days, we've had volume confirming this bullish move along with a crossover. This is where identifying these entries for a swing trade becomes incredibly powerful. All right, because you can identify even prior to earnings. Let's just say crossover to crossover, because our crossover happened here. So potential entry on this day, even if you were staying in the shorter term, you can see that is a 25.95% move in just 2 days using volume analysis on top of the predictive crossovers as well. I mean, I don't know how much more powerful of a trading tool that you can get, but identifying these trends ahead of time using the IntelliScan. Keep in mind, you had this last night and the night before, because guess what? This scan actually, this asset would have shown up in the scan. Take a look. Remember, what we scanned for was the 4 points of confirmation and increasing volume. Did we have that back here? We did. We had it on 721 with a crossover. So the night of 721, you would have actually received that information for that potential entry on 722, or that trend identification on 722. So again, did we have bullish volume? We did. The volume trend was up. There's enough volume within this asset as well, liquidity wise, right? Trade volume. And then of course we do have the crossover and the neural index all happening there on the 21st. If you, again, like a shorter term or an earlier entry, this is where you could simply switch this over to the short-term crossover and actually get that signal on the 18th. So on Friday, that information would have shown up Friday evening for that potential trend identification, and of course based on your own trade analysis and strategy. If you were to take a position there on 721, those profits could have increased as well. So just moving that on back if you were to take the earlier entry. Again, of course, this is going to depend upon your risk tolerances, but there you go. You have another 2% over a day. So again, big differences in whether or not you have the confidence to enter into that trend using that predictive analysis, including the EMAI, the predictive crossovers, just so much power here within the software. So let's see. Yes, that is a Larry Williams indicator. The EMAI, or the Electronic Market Accumulation Index, is a Larry Williams indicator. VantagePoint has partnered with Larry Williams. They've worked together for many, many decades now to really provide these incredibly powerful, just powerhouse of an indicator in the EMAI line, as well as professional sentiment, some other indicators as well, but primarily focusing on our EMAI line today as it does relate to volume. So let's take a look at some other assets you guys had requested, and go ahead and just drop them in the chat. We have about 10 more minutes, so we'll certainly take a look at some of these. So let's just see HMC. Oh, we already looked at that one. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to get into our chat. There we go. Is it CENN or CEN? I don't think, maybe I looked at that one wrong. We've already looked at Amazon. Let's see. Okay. There we go. Sorry, I had to scroll back up on the chat. Sorry, guys. Let's look at MU, KSS. Okay, the lowercase s threw me off there for a second, AB. Sorry about that. Very good. All right. Let's see some other ones here. All right. AMD. NVIDIA. Yeah, NVIDIA is always a great one, guys. Especially recently. We actually just did a stock study on NVIDIA, so check that out. If you're already a VantagePoint user, you can see that full breakdown of the amazing trend that's been happening on NVIDIA. But with VantagePoint also comes incredibly powerful resources as well. So, oh gosh, this is, who typed in MU? I didn't quite see the name in the chat. I'm sorry, but thank you, because this is a great example. Actually coming back and looking at MU from that volume standpoint as well, because we can see here that we did have a crossover to the downside. This kind of gives us that additional component here where we can see a potential for a reversal as well coming up. So we'll look at current in just a second, but I want to highlight the power of volume in helping to anticipate that price movement and confirm the crossovers as well, because we'll take that information and look at it moving forward. But we can see that we actually started to see our neural index turning bearish. Now, our trend hasn't turned bearish yet, right? Keep in mind, I see that this is still green, right? But our neural index has turned bearish, and look at this large volume bar here as well. Notice it's red. So this is going to indicate bearish volume. So we have a highly bearish volume with sort of this weakening trend. And I'm going to say a weakening trend because if we pull this up, we can see our predictive differences, make it so I don't even have to make a new circle, but our predictive differences right here are all trending to the downside. So that would be an indication of a weakening trend. And so although we do have a bullish trend, our neural index is bearish, our trend strength indicators are indicating bearishness, which means that that bullish trend is now not as strong as it once was, right? And then we also have highly bearish volume, all right? Increasing bearish volume, not just for one day, but for 2 days in a row. And so we can see this increasing bearish volume as well as a signal that maybe, just maybe, this trend has come to an end. All right. So this is why volume is so important, and not only entry timing, but exit timing as well. Or if you're looking to short the market, then there's potential there for an entry, to the downside. So keep that in mind. Entry, exit, confirmation, volume can do so much for you within your trade strategy that it's so important to analyze. And I'm hoping that, you're picking up at least one or two of these things from the session today. So as we can see, we did have bearish volume happening here with confirmation of our crossover here as well. So let's take a look. And again, that's an earlier identification of that, right? So let's take a look and see what we're seeing here. One, our predictive trade candle is expecting a higher high for today, right? So with that higher high for today, we can see that trade range was expected to be a high of 111.50 and a low of 108.21. If you're wondering where on earth are you getting these numbers from, right? I'm actually seeing them right up here in the upper left corner. You can see that information as I put my crosshairs on the predictive values for today. That's going to show up, guys. That's going to show up the night before. All right, so you're getting that last night for the predicted high of 111.50 and the predicted low of 108.21 with a predicted mid-range of 109.85. All right, where did we close at today? MU was at 111.73. All right, so 23 cents above the predicted high. That's pretty darn close if you ask me. All right, within 23 cents on a $100 plus stock. Come on, I mean, that's just incredible accuracy. So, sorry, it just never ceases to amaze me. But anyway, so as we see, could this be a shift in the trend? If we can see that bullish volume increasing 2 days in a row, if we can get our predictive differences crossing to the upside, which we are already starting to see that shift here, right? And then bullish volume again, and our neural index turning green. If we can get those points of confirmation. Now, I'm not saying that we were there yet today, right? That's the importance of understanding, trusting the technical analysis. But if you are looking for that earlier entry for those users who want to look at the update tonight to see what those predictive values are expected to be, if we would get across, and again, I'm not saying that this is happening yet, right? We clearly don't have it, but what to look for moving forward so you can have confidence, all right? If we were to see a bullish crossover to the upside, again, shorter term, going to be that short-term crossover, a little slightly more conservative, that medium term, more conservative than that, going to be that long-term crossover. But you would want confirmation on the neural index. We don't just have that yet. So I would say a little too soon to tell, but are we starting to shift in that direction? Sure, would this certainly be something that you might want to put on a watch list? That's a possibility as well until you get that good confirmation. But volume here helping to identify that as well using that volume analysis right here. Again, looking for that increasing bullish volume 2 days in a row. Now, volume, shifting volume at a level of support or resistance can also be an indication of a potential reversal. So let me just clear my drawings here, and let's go ahead and analyze from support and resistance standpoint as well. So I'm going to add on our support zones onto our software here, and I can just add them on right here from our drop down. And here now we see that we do have these zones of support and resistance. So we are in fact at a support level. All right. So if we were to see increasing bullish volume at support, now we can see that we closed above that support level. That's telling us that that support level is very strong, right? So with a strong support level, what else could we look at to help us confirm that this could potentially be a bounce off of support? You could also incorporate momentum as well. So if you look at your technical analysis, right, looking at some of those shorter term momentum indicators such as your stochastics, your percent R, another Larry Williams, right, that Larry Williams percent R, and you could even use your RSI as well. Let's just take a look at these momentum indicators to see, do we have bullish momentum? And not quite yet, right? We do start to see percent R and RSI starting to shift in the right direction. Again, would this be something when the software updates tonight where we'll see these strong bullish signals starting to take place that could identify a potential shift? these are the reversals that swing traders look for. Are we there yet? I think it's too premature to tell, right? We're not quite there yet, but could we potentially see something strong come out of this if we start to get that predictive analysis in alignment? It's a possibility, as we are up against support if we get that increasing volume, right? As well as those momentum indicators shifting bullishly. Again, are we there yet? Not quite, right? We would want to see percent R come above that oversold threshold. We want to see RSI come above that oversold threshold, and same with stochastics. We'd want to see that switch to the upside with the percent K leading the way. Who here trades using momentum? Do you incorporate momentum in your analysis? Let me know, as we might incorporate that into the next session a little bit more here. I know today our focus was really identifying volume breakouts, and I hope that our IntelliScan that we went over today really did showcase that. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up one more time for you guys so you can see the fact that we actually scanned for almost 1,800 different assets here. You could even add in your ETFs into this scan to identify different sectors that are moving and have higher volume as well. But looking at the individual assets in this scan, we can see we looked for those 4 points of confirmation and included our volume analysis right here in the scan to really give us higher quality assets that are really meeting that trade setup or trade strategy using that volume analysis as well. So if you do not already use VantagePoint, you can certainly go to our VantagePointForecast.com. I believe we've dropped it in the chat. If not, we'll do so now. If you learned anything in today's session, go ahead and just give it a thumbs up, like and subscribe, please. That really helps us to just reach even more traders and provide this incredibly powerful education through, the predictive technical analysis. Retail traders are, you guys deserve as much information as the big players out there. And so using the predictive analysis and artificial intelligence in VantagePoint can certainly help to provide that. So if you do like and subscribe, you'll get, additional training resources here within our channel. And we love to see you in each and every session. So until the next one, I hope everybody has a great day and happy trading.